Storytelling is without a doubt the hardest and scariest topic in editing because it's just too big to explain. And you are currently an editor, I would assume, right? And you're struggling to work on your storytelling skills because you feel like it's hard to implement it when you work with clients that have just such weird content, right? So I don't know who you are, but I'm going to assume that you do something, whether it like, whether you're working with some kind of like Roblox clients or, like the Fortnite clients that, upload daily and they have like 20 minutes of footage or, Reacts or just kind of like anything formulaic. It's like kind of hard to implement these storytelling skills when clients have their own way of doing things and you have very limited materials. Now, you've probably gone to watch editors like Hayden Hillier-Smith for your storytelling knowledge, but you struggle to implement these tips because you don't work with high production IRL clients. By the way, Hayden Hillier-Smith, brilliant editor. It's just that the kind of clients he works with, they have so much footage he has so much footage to work with, and that kind of puts this idea in your head where you feel like you need to have certain amount of footage in order to implement these kind of storytelling tricks. But I'm here to tell you that's not the case, right? That is not the case. And who is this man on screen, right? He's got like 1,000 subscribers. What the fuck does he know about editing? Okay, well, my name is dannyrio. I've been editing for about 4 years now, okay? And here's some of my credibility, right? If you want to see anything more about me, you can find out about it on my page, my portfolio. You can find out all about me wherever you go, right? I think my biggest flaw in credibility is the fact that I don't get revisions anymore. I just kind of press on my clients and I say, hey, this is what I know, this is what I do. Let's go with this because I know this. And they're like, yeah, good, cool. All down to all you, bro. That's all yours. Okay. So I think my biggest flex is that for about a year now, I haven't really had revisions. I mean, unless I'm like getting outsourced to, that's a different story. But when I'm working with clients one-to-one, I don't have that problem. Okay. I think that's my probably biggest form of credibility, right? So I'm going to show you the first steps you need to take in order to become a master of storytelling in your videos, right? So what is the very first thing you need to know? It's a lack of consistency. You need to be so good at lacking in consistency. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Lack of consistency meaning a lack of consistency in your cuts. The number one, if you want to talk about retention, the number one retention killer is consistent cuts, right? That is bad, right? Let me show you like a timeline, just an example, right? I just pulled this out of fucking nowhere, right? Okay, so it's my 4-hour guide. This is the timeline for it. But you can see here that a lot of these are cut pretty quickly. Like there's, to the point where you can't even see some of the layers. But then you kind of have these moments where I leave in this fat stack of just long footage. Now, this would mean kind of a lack of consistency in this sequence, at least, right? There's this point where consistency starts to lack, so to speak. Why is this important? Danny, what are you talking about? Why this is important? Well, here's how this works, right? If you want to learn about storytelling in general, let's just look at it from a kind of broader scale. Let's kind of zoom out here for a second. Let's talk about storytelling in a verbal sense, right? So I don't mean storytelling in this kind of visual medium. I'm talking about verbally, right? So let's say I was talking to you in person and then I was telling a story. The way that I could be so boring is having just one tone. That is called monotone. What does monotone sound like? Sounds like this. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the empty street, but when Mia turned to look, there was no one there, only the faint sense of smoke lingering in the air, and a single note pinned to the wall, you should never come back. Right? So it's not the fact that I sound dull, but it's the fact that I sound the same. So it could also sound like this and sound pretty boring. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the empty street, but when Mia turned to look, there was no one there, only the faint sense of smoke lingering in the air, and a single note pinned to the wall, you should never come back. Right? So it's not the fact that I'm trying to make it boring. It's the fact that it's just speaking in one tone. There's no range. So great. I was consistent with my tone, but bad because I was consistent with my tone. Do you see the point here? So what happens is you can build up consistency, but at some point you need to deviate from your tone, deviate from what you're doing to kind of put it into perspective. It's the same sense of like without bad, there is no good. Without evil, there is no good. Without darkness, there is no light, right? You, in order for something to be considered something, right? There must have some kind of comparison. There must be some kind of contrast, right? So you can't say there's emotional depth in a certain scene if you don't change how you edit or how you cut from a different scene, if you know what I mean, right? So let me put this in a way where you can understand. So, for example, let's say this is your timeline, okay? And then each clip that you cut is probably around like maybe 1.5 seconds long, right? And then the cuts in between, okay, your flow. So basically how you transition between clips, this is called your flow. So you've probably understood it to be when you cut, you don't want to cut too short, but you also don't want to cut too kind of late, if you know what I mean. Like, you want to make sure that you don't cut off their sentences, and you also don't want to leave too much dead space, right? So you leave this comfortable kind of cushion of dead space so that we can digest and move on. But now the problem with this is that if you stay consistent throughout the entire video, it's monotone. Your video is monotone. It's boring. There's nothing to kind of compare and say, oh yeah, this one hit harder than this one. Like, these are purposely boring so that these moments of, you know, kind of longer clips where they're like, let's say like 12 seconds long, and this is like, what, 5 seconds of dead space? So instead of like 5 frames, it's 5 seconds of dead space. In order for this to be considered interesting, this must be considered boring. You must have a build-up of this kind of boring, cut-up stuff. So the same way that I was talking about the story earlier, and I was just kind of like reading it in one tone, this would be the consistent cutting. But now if you add some kind of range to your tone, range being you just change it up, you deviate, right? Then it makes it a bit more interesting. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the empty street. But when Mia turned to look, there was no one there. Only the faint scent of smoke lingering in the air and a single note pinned to the wall. You shouldn't have come back. Now, I'm not like a master vocal storyteller, but what I can tell you is that there was range there. There was diversity in tone, right? You can go quicker, you go short, like, and it, you know, this stuff sounds like really basic. Danny, oh, I fucking know this. But what you don't understand is that these same principles apply in your editing. If you consistently cut like this, and I know there's people out there because there's tools that make you cut dead space, and then you fuckers just get away with it. You guys will download that like Firecut AI or like any kind of like tool, and then you'll make sure that all of like your entire video looks like this. And then the client's like, oh yeah, thank you. Wow, you delivered that really quickly. But really quickly just means like, yeah, you put no effort in, and now my video's got like 20% retention. When you have this kind of break off, this deviation, right? Then it's something pretty important. The viewers kind of lock in. They kind of realize they don't have their audio kicking in, right? And what this is called, what this technique is called, it's called a deviated cut, right? You're going to see this this isn't even like popular, right? Now, this isn't like a popular term, right? It's a term that I kind of just invented because I don't think there is like a word for this, like where you just simply, because it's kind of like a known thing, right? It's a known thing with film editors, but I think when it comes to YouTube editing is still a bit new, it's still a bit young, right? So I'm coining this term. Let's start using this, please, just for my sake. Thank you. Right? Deviated cut. Deviation simply means to break from the, break from the path. Okay? So you kind of break from your path of consistent cutting so you can have this dead space to make it more interesting. So the same way that I'm talking right now, sometimes you'll hear me go talk faster and faster and faster. My pace will start to pick up. And then other times I'll speak much slower. And when I do speak slower and when my cut starts becoming slower, it usually means that this is supposed to hit. This is supposed to settle. This is supposed to kind of resonate with you. And I'm going to do this maybe in this video, right? I don't know, depending on how the footage looks. But I'll probably start cutting it up and then I'll show you what a deviated cut looks like. Might even actually do it on this one. So how does this work, right? How can we make sure that we have this? Well, this is a universal principle, people. And I'm pretty sure maybe at some point, right? Maybe at some point Hayden Hillier-Smith has talked about this. He just didn't give it the name deviated cut because I just told you that I made it up. But anyways, point is, I'm pretty sure he knows about this stuff and other editors know about this stuff. And it's just that the intimidation of looking at editors who work on these big projects, right? You look at these editors who work on perhaps IRL, and then you'd kind of assume, yeah, in order for me to kind of implement storytelling, I must work in the IRL niche. It's just not the case. Dude, give me React, give me Roblox, give me whatever the fuck there is. Give me 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and I can show you how storytelling can still be told, right? You can still tell stories with minimal material. Now, granted, it'll be a bit harder because the client's not doing you justice by giving you a lot of footage, but it's still possible. There is no I can do storytelling and I can't. You always can, it's just on a scale, right? And this doesn't just apply with cutting, this applies with stuff like music and stuff like subtitling. Now, listen up here, people, because if you hate subtitling, if you hate doing music, listen up, because you might just be able to get away with doing this a lot less, right? So I want you to bring this up with your clients. Now, this is one of my recent timelines, okay? And you can probably point out a few things. One, Danny is a very messy boy. He really needs to clean up his markers and his cutting and his timeline in general. Two is that I have these kind of weird little, not a lot of subtitles. These are my subtitles, by the way, but not a lot of layers here. And another thing is that the music, why is there such poor sound design, right? A lot of people consider this poor sound design because there's not a lot of tracks in it. Not how it works, pal, right? Same with subtitling. You could probably argue that these are bad subtitles because I don't have them throughout the entire thing. But that's not the case. Everyone does this. Ever since 2020, right? Ever since the whole Mr. Beast arc, people have decided to put subtitles throughout their entire video with the same pop-ins, and we need to leave it in the past, people. We need to understand why we use subtitles. So the reason why my subtitles and the reason why my cutting and the reason why my music works so well is because I follow this, right? I kind of understand what this does, what each of these things mean, and I play them to my advantage. What does that mean? Well, let me show you, right? These subtitles, there's not a lot of them. This is a 40-minute video? There's not a lot of subtitles, okay? So when I do use them, what it'll do is it'll accentuate the joke, or it'll accentuate the kind of horror, or kind of emotion, whatever emotion is being foretold, but whatever emotion is being conveyed throughout that scene. Subtitles are like heroin, right? Subtitles will just kind of push it in your face a bit more, in the sense of, I don't want to treat the people like they're idiots. But what I'll do is I will use the subtitles to basically just put it in their face, okay? Not in a sense where it's completely lazy, but in the sense where these subtitles, they're just they deliver the punchline so well. Okay, to the point where I can kind of create my own punchlines because I don't have a lot of subtitles, right? So these subtitles, because they don't come around so often, people will start to notice, people start to listen and focus up. They will dart their eyes to the bottom of the screen where the subtitles will be. So let's say you just kind of look at this blank screen. You can see where my, I'm going to turn off my camera maybe for a second, but you can kind of see where my toolbar is. This is where the subtitles would usually be. So let's say it went white, and then we just suddenly bring back the toolbar, your eyes are going to dart down there. The same thing with the subtitles, that when they're not there, people are like, okay, this is the standard, this is normal. The screen time of not having subtitles is greater, far greater, than the screen time of actually having subtitles on screen. There's probably about 5 minutes of subtitle footage here at max, okay? And it's a 40-minute video, right? So what happens is that when they see that, then the viewers will know it means something. The viewers will know, okay, the editor put it here for a reason. The same with the cutting, the same with the music, right? This is just like the deviated cuts, people. When I cut my pattern in, cutting, right? When I change the pattern, when I deviate from it to go to this kind of long track, it means that something happened here and they need to focus up. When I don't add my subtitles in, people get used to that consistency of not having subtitles. So when I go from having no subtitles to subtitles, it means something, and they know it means something, right? So they start to focus up. But they would never have focused up if I had more subtitles in. Okay, do you get what I mean? So the same thing with the sound design, right? I don't need to change my music every now and then, because when I do use music, I want it to mean something. And I don't need to have, you can see there's plenty of moments where there isn't any music, when there isn't a lot of sound. It's like that on purpose, right? You can by all means get faster at your workflow, kind of build up this pattern you want to build. But when you start to make your editing formulaic, like a lot of channels out there, you struggle to build, you struggle to improve in it, you struggle to kind of see what works, what doesn't work, because you're so used to this kind of just printed algorithm of how to edit. And also, you just don't enjoy your job. Let's be real, you don't have fun when you're doing it like that. I can guarantee you I've had much more fun on like editing videos where I can do whatever I want than ones where I kind of had to listen to the client's formulaic editing. This is all you really need to know to take a foot in the door when it comes to storytelling. You don't need all these crazy techniques. You don't need, like, this isn't some bullshit of like, oh, do this on the timeline or do this or make this trick or like label your layers this. It's like, it's simply just understanding how the audience will react. And you know, the best way of knowing how the audience will react is how you will react. You are a viewer. I am a viewer. I checked my liked videos the other day on one of my YouTube accounts, and it's capped at 5,000, right? Meaning that the counter is capped at 5,000, meaning that I've probably watched tens of thousands, perhaps maybe even 100,000 throughout my entire life, YouTube videos, right? I've watched like tens of thousands of YouTube videos my entire life. I can predict when a cut is going to happen, okay? You probably can too. So if you can predict when a cut is going to happen, viewers can probably predict when a cut is going to happen. And if it's to the point where you keep up this consistency and then you just keep going like this, right? And then it's just this constant cutting of consistency, right? Then people are going to be like, okay, I know when every cut is going to happen. This video is boring. I don't need to watch this anymore, right? You need these, people. You need these to keep your video alive. You need deviated cuts to keep your video alive. Same thing that goes with subtitles, same thing that goes with music. You just need contrast. It's basically just contrast I'm talking about, right? But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then there's going to be like another one, maybe over here or something, or I don't know, wherever, somewhere on the screen. It's going to be this 1 hour video where I broke down kind of my biggest storytelling tips for people wanting to get into editing. That's about an hour long. I don't really edit it down too much, and it's a bit old, so I probably don't speak as confident and as loud as I do now, but I hope you enjoy it. And if you need help with getting better at editing, click the link in below, okay? All good, have a good one, and I'll probably see you in like a couple days when I upload again.